Okay, I think we're live. Hopefully, all right, looks like everything's set. So, I'm not sure if anybody's around to even join the live stream. Hey, how are you, George? Long time no talk. Glad to see you on. I always do live streaming for trivia on Wednesdays, and people know to expect it. Hey, Jeff, welcome. So I wasn't sure if I would get anybody joining us today, since it's more of an impromptu live stream, but I'm really glad you both are here. So I guess I'll just chat normally for a couple minutes, see if anybody else joins us, and then I wanted to chat a little bit about triggers in recovery, and really for anything, I guess. I assume that other types of trauma and stuff, people have to deal with triggers also. So I think triggers is kind of like a well-rounded enough topic. I had an experience yesterday that kind of triggered me to think about it, so I thought I would talk to you guys about it. But we'll wait and see if anybody else joins us. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. The weather here is going to be hot for the next couple of days, and my kids are with their dad, so I have a little bit of free time, and I thought it would be nice. Normally I have a video uploaded Friday or Saturday, and I was going to just record a normal video and get it posted, but I thought it would be nice to kind of just live stream and chat with people and see how everybody's doing. So how are you guys? How's things going? Again, I'm really glad you're here. It's funny because when I live stream on Wednesdays for trivia, we have people waiting, so right away there's a whole bunch of people on, but when you don't really schedule a live stream, it's a lot different. People don't know you're on, and I don't know about anybody else. I'm on YouTube a lot, but I don't normally check to see, whether people are live streaming throughout the day. So what inspired me to talk about this is I follow a lot of other recovery and mental health YouTubers, and I also follow a lot of people on YouTube. I have two accounts. I have my Jexy account. Hey Jenny, welcome. Hey Straight Talkin'. So depending on what account I'm on, I follow different channels. And so if you guys know who I'm talking about, please do not say it, because this is not a negative against anybody. Hey Trial, welcome. Yeah, I wanted to talk about something that kind of triggered me, and this is a personal thing. This is something that triggered me as a person, not something that was triggering for all. So I'm going to talk about the experience I had, but I want to be really, really clear. This is not a negative against another YouTuber. This has nothing to do with them. This is about me talking about triggers. So if you know the video I'm talking about or the channel I'm talking about, please don't say it, because this is in no way against them. It just inspired feelings in me that I thought would make a good discussion. So given that, I was watching a video yesterday, and somebody was talking about their experience with certain medications. And I'm not even going to give you the details on what meds, because that's irrelevant. But at the beginning of the video, 3 times, before the intro even started, they held up the meds, right here in the camera, right? Multiple times. And look, November will be 7 years for me off of all substances, and I was a little surprised that I was triggered in such a way, right? Maybe it was because I wasn't expecting it. So I wrote a comment on the video, was because I do support this person. I watch a lot of their stuff, and I was unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip this one. Hey, BMX Gamer, welcome. I told them, I was unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip watching this video. It's just a little too triggering to me. And in the time it took me to write those couple of sentences, there was 4 other times where they were up in the screen, right? Hey Supernova, welcome. Aw, thanks so much for stopping by to say hi. So again, this is not against the person or the channel or anything. It just got me thinking, I don't deal with a lot of triggers anymore in recovery. And because that instance triggered me, I thought it would be worth discussing, because not necessarily that instance, but triggers in general, because I think the longer we're in recovery, the less triggers surprise us, right? The less that we're shocked by them. I know that, for example, certain pill bottle noises, All right, sounds good, Supernova. Have a great time with your hubby. For example, like when you shake certain pill bottles, that noise, that can trigger me a bit too, you know? I do not think I know which video, and I do not want to say that part of the blame is mine as their editor. I should have added a warning at the beginning. Oh, Jenny, keep in mind, hey Ian, welcome. Yeah, exactly. And Jenny, please, it is not anybody's blame. This is not, as I said, this is not a hit against anybody at all, right? This is talking about me personally because, and I think I'm glad that it inspired me to talk about this because I think a lot of times when we're triggered, we're not expecting it. So I'm going to tell you about the very first instance where I had been triggered in any sort of way. I was still in a rehab center, and our rehab used to go to AA meetings and NA meetings, whichever ones were in the hospital that I was in, right? And so it was an AA meeting, not that it matters, but that's what this was. And a guy says that he's sharing, and he pulls out a full, 2-gallon size Ziploc bag filled with pills, right? And he's like, I'm going to have to drop these off somewhere, and it's triggering me that I'm walking around with this bag of pills while he's shaking them, right? So people were upset with him, right? People were like, how could you do that at a meeting? What is the matter with you, right? So I shared, now mind you, at the time, maybe I had 2 weeks clean, and I was still in treatment. So I raised my hand, and I was like, I know this may be the unpopular opinion, but I'm kind of glad that happened because pills are my drug of choice. And having to deal with but I don't know what's in them, right? But having the experience of seeing a bag of pills and hearing the noise, right? Although it triggered me, it gave me an opportunity to experience what that was like while still in a safe environment, you know? And so when I say that the video that your parents were hippies, that's fantastic. When I say this, not the video's fault, because this particular channel, it was very clear in the title what was going to be discussed, and it wouldn't be the first time that this is that person's way. I'm not even giving sex, it's just so we're clear, because I don't want anybody to think I'm talking negatively about somebody. But it was my fault for not having an expectation of the possibility that they would be in front of the screen, right? That's not that YouTuber's fault, right? Because we are all responsible for our own recovery, right? And triggers many, many times come at us without us realizing it. So part of early recovery is we're taught to avoid people, places, and things, right? We have to change who we hung out with, where we hung out, in order to keep ourselves from being triggered regularly. And that's great and all, but that doesn't mean that we're never going to be triggered ever, right? And that would be an unrealistic thing to think. I can't control anything in the outside world, right? So sometimes things are going to happen that trigger me. For example, I was running a meeting, an NA meeting, and somebody shares and they sound like they're messed up, right? They sound high. Now, it is not my responsibility to tell somebody whether they're high or not, right? So the person is saying that they're clean, but they sound high. Well, there were people who had to leave the meeting because it was triggering to them. That happens, right? That kind of stuff happens regularly. It is nobody's fault. It is not that person's fault for sharing. They should be able to share at a meeting regardless, right? If they're struggling, then they're in the right place. So, let's see. Jenny says, I feel you. Not all of our triggers are avoidable. I still feel it's important to warn for known triggers. Yeah, look, I agree that sometimes it's a good idea, if you know something you're talking about is going to be triggering, to say something. However, how is somebody supposed to know that what triggers me is what triggers somebody else, you know? I think that, I've seen a lot of videos where people are put trigger warnings out, and I'm I almost feel like it's unnecessary. And that's just me, because look, the reality of it is anything I talk about could potentially trigger somebody else, right? And the fact is that this did not come from a channel that was surprising. This is the kind of stuff that they talk about on this channel, right? So I feel like part of my personal responsibility to my recovery is to be aware that sometimes things like that could happen, right? I could have clicked off the second of. I chose to leave a comment and let them know because I didn't know if there was other people who watched it who may also have a similar issue like that, right? But it is not, sure, because you put a trigger warning, absolutely. But there's a lot of things, like, it's not just recovery, right? There's people who have been through trauma, there's people who have been through other things who get triggered by things that may not even seem like things to me. And I would hate to go down a slippery slope of being like, well, they should have said something or this person should say something, because I am sure that I have said things in the past, just sharing my own experience, that could have triggered somebody else, and it wouldn't have occurred to me, you know? So I don't put responsibility on that person at all. And as I said, the only reason I brought it up at all was to tell you something that triggers me personally and how I deal with it. Because I think we all have different things that we come across that trigger us. For example, there's a lot of people who talk about, smoking pot. And, sometimes that may trigger me, sometimes it doesn't, right? And everybody has their own feelings about things. It's how we manage them, right? Like, what do we do? So the first thing I did was I didn't watch the rest of the video. All right, Jeff says, a couple of my guys have had to deal with family medical emergencies and death, unfortunately. Dealing with difficult emotions is a big trigger for my guys. Yes, heavy emotions are absolutely a big trigger. When we really numb our emotions in a big way, right? Like most drugs, I mean, maybe there's a few that don't, but most drugs have a numbing aspect to them where we don't really feel things fully. Right? No matter what kind of drugs they are, they numb our feelings. They can numb, I've shared this before, but the drugs that I used, it had numbed my senses. My eyesight, my hearing, my sense of smell, my taste, it all changed. And I didn't realize that until I was off the drugs, So Straight Talkin' says, I was triggered a few days ago by someone from a Facebook dating group. Yeah, I mean, it can come from anywhere. Let's see. Ian says, right, that's where we possess and access our own personal recovery. Exactly, Ian. It's inevitable when a group of addicts are working together. There are shares that are real difficult but necessary. Exactly. And as Jeff said before, emotions can be hugely triggering. It is really, really difficult. In my recovery, I've been through death. I've, left my husband. Now ex-husband, right? So I've been through some of these really hard feelings. I even found my next door neighbor's dead body in recovery, right? Those things, and she was somebody I knew since I was 3. She was like, she was like an aunt to me. I was very close with her. And I was the one that found her. So those things are, but I can tell you, when I found my neighbor, I have a lot of trouble calling my sponsor a lot of times, right? Because as you guys know, I do work a 12-step program. But I had a lot of trouble calling my sponsor on a regular basis. But when that happened and I was really triggered with emotions, I did pick up the phone and call somebody. That is when our personal, as Ian said, that is when our personal recovery kicks in. The best thing we can do for ourselves in recovery is be aware of what things trigger us. We can get into real trouble when we don't identify them and then we're taken, off guard. Like if I didn't know that and it's not all pills, right? Like my boyfriend is epileptic. And so once a week he lays out all his pills and he sorts them into he's got one of those days of the week, morning, noon, and night things. And once a week he sets them all up. And I'm usually there for that. I can even help him with that. And it doesn't bother me at all, right? And I don't know if it's because I know what the medications are, if it's become part of my routine, right? There were times in my marriage, my ex-husband, he had to take a lot of pain medication. And depending on the situation, sometimes it triggered me, sometimes it didn't. And I just want to make sure I have this on live chat. I don't think it matters when it's just normal talking, but I know sometimes it does make it. Of course, my computer's not going to let me click on it. But we need to be aware of what it is that can trigger us. As I said, I'm more triggered usually by noises of things. But I was surprised, I'm not going to lie, I was surprised that I felt so taken back by having somebody go like this to the camera and show pills. And neither of those pills were my drug of choice. But there was almost, to be honest, and again, this is not against them. I'm just using this as an example for myself, right? It wasn't just the pills. It was the way when he was showing them, hey, Max, welcome. What he was talking about, he was talking in a very like upbeat, smiley, happy sort of way, like showing the pills, and like the attitude along with showing the pills was what kind of threw me. I think if it had been like a more serious topic, like he was talking about it in a more serious way and then showed them, I may have reacted differently. But there was something about the like, hey, because it was an intro, right? Like, hey, everybody, welcome, whatever he's saying, like, and then throws them in your face. I was like, it takes me more back to like pills are fun type of attitude, right? That's me. That has nothing to do with the person who did it. That has to do with me and my recovery and how I view things, So there are other things that can trigger, and like I think the hardest thing for me especially in early recovery, was I couldn't change people, places, and things, right? And I've shared this before on my channel. Hey, Jiffy, welcome. So I've shared before, right? Like I couldn't change people, places, and things in early recovery. My people was my husband at the time. My place was my own home and my bathroom. And my things was times of day. Like 3 o'clock in the afternoon was hugely tough for me. So what I did in order to combat the fact that I couldn't change people, places, and things. Yeah, oh, Jenny, I'm glad that you're taking the feedback. But as I said, like this is not about bad things that they did, right? Like I'm just personally sharing my own feelings about some things. Other people may have felt completely differently, and that's okay, right? Like that's why I am purposely like not naming who, not even giving the sex, like not saying anything, because I don't want this to be like, oh, they did something wrong. Like, no, this is about how I felt, not about anything they did, right? Because I can tell you this, early recovery, like sometimes my kids would like walk and like brush up against me, and like that was a problem for me. I was so sensitive to touch, right? It wasn't my kids' fault for brushing against me, right? It was my reactions I had to work on. It was my feelings I had to work on. So I kind of look at this as a similar way. It's not their video that was the problem. It's the way that my brain reacted to that, So what I did was, when I said that I couldn't change people, places, and things in early recovery, right? When we're talking about it was my husband, my house, and the time, well, what did I do? Well, what I did was I used to use on my bathroom counters, so that was a huge trigger for me. But what I did was when I had gotten out of rehab, I changed the way my bathroom counter looked. I moved things. Like our bathroom counter used to be perfectly clear. So I put things up there like perfume bottles and different soap dishes and stuff, so that visually it looked different. I also used a different bathroom for quite some time. Same with time of day, like 3 o'clock. What I would do is at like 2:56, I would go outside and smoke a cigarette, because at the time I was a smoker. And I wouldn't watch the clock. And I felt that coming in, and then I would come in, I'd make a cup of coffee. I started a whole new routine. So I never watched it turn 3 o'clock. And by the time I was able to stay inside for that time, I already had a new routine. 3 o'clock became my afternoon cup of coffee, not the next time I used, Oh, hold on. My daughter's calling. I'm in the middle of a live stream. May I call you back? All right, is he all right for a little bit? Like 15 minutes. Okay, everything's okay though? Okay. All right, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Okay. All right, I'll call you back. All right, love you guys. Bye. Sorry, no matter what I'm doing, I answer the phone when my kids call. So let's see. Jeff says, I think it's really important to understand that not all people dealing with addiction can change person, places, and things. Exactly. You can't. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's important to change the things you can, but then it's learning to deal with the emotions and feelings you have when you can't. Max says, yeah, you're not blaming anyone. It's solely how you feel about it. Yes, exactly. That's all I'm talking about here. Not that someone did anything wrong. Just how the way I felt about it inspired me to talk to you guys about triggers. Max says, my entire bathroom was a huge trigger for me. Yes. That was really hard because especially since I'm a mom and my kids are really, really young. Like, they don't even remember. I think my daughter has they have a few memories of visiting me in rehab, but they don't, or like other things that happened during that time period, but they were a little too young to like really know about they know now about my active addiction, but I would wait until like it was nap time or, they were asleep and I would go in the bathroom and shut the door. So bathrooms were a huge trigger for me for quite some time. I feel you on that one. I have PTSD and most of my triggers are uncontrollable. Exactly. Hey, Nicole, welcome. Yeah, so I think what's important is first is identifying the kinds of things that do trigger you and then learning how to manage those feelings, because sometimes we can prepare for when triggers are going to come, right? Like let's say you're going to a wedding and there's people are going to be drinking there, right? So you can kind of prepare how that may make you feel and what are you going to do if you feel a certain way, right? But sometimes those situations just come up where like you're out and you run into somebody you used to use with and they're like, hey, I got something, you want to go hang out? What are you going to do, right? So it's important that's kind of where recovery comes in, is knowing how things make you feel and knowing what to do when those feelings come. Oh, you guys are talking about me? I hope it was not bad. But yeah, so I think like, just because I'm just making sure. Hold on. I will share this with you. Sorry, guys. Apparently, that was my kid's father letting me know what the other side is. My son has, I don't want to say he's like a bad sport, but he sometimes struggles with games, and he doesn't like to lose, but it's not just losing. He doesn't like if he's not good enough to be able to win. And so apparently that's what triggered the phone call into, I don't want to be here anymore. But kids are kids, right? You're listening while you do your makeup. Fantastic. So, yeah, but so even with recovery time, I can still be caught off guard and be triggered and not be expecting it. Like, there are very few things that trigger me now. And, like, I am very involved in a 12-step recovery program, and I run across people who are high all the time. And it doesn't usually have that feeling, right? Like, I see meds all the time. Doesn't usually have that problem. But something about that video yesterday got me. And I was kind of surprised, Yeah, it is a rough age. So, luckily his sister seems to be being nice to him. So, I think we'll be okay. Thank you so much. Okay, sorry. As I said, kids got to come first. When anything's dealing with the kids, live stream or not, got to manage it, right? So, but yeah, I think I was more surprised with myself for being triggered from a video, right? Like, I've seen YouTube videos on lots of things, and I don't know why that particular video just got me, right? As I said, it's not the video, it's not the person. So I'm purposely not sharing about what video it was or whose channel it was, because I want to make sure that this is really clear that it's my feelings. I can tell you what I saw and why it triggered me this way, but I want to make sure I'm sharing about my feelings about something and not like, oh, this person did the wrong thing, because they did what they do, right? Like, it's their channel. So I'm purposely like not pointing it out. I don't want anybody to like go hate on someone just because I reacted badly. But in the intro of the video, the person like right up at the camera held up 2 different types of pills. And I guess I wasn't expecting it, and it had happened a few times, like right at the beginning of the video. There was like 2 or 3 times at the intro, and then right after like the little intro played, it was like another 2 or 3 times, like right then too. So and it wasn't like it was like they were what the video was described to be, right? And I said it wasn't just the showing, I think it was like the happiness about it, I haven't told anybody what video I'm talking about, so don't worry, Nicole. I'm just talking about how sometimes we can be triggered by things, and then it's a matter... Yeah, hi Jan, welcome. The person who edits that video is in the chat, and so I want to make sure that we're not being too harsh, because I think that person feels a little bad about it, and I don't want them to feel it was their fault. It's just my personal feelings, you know? Like, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm, like, bringing the hammer down on them, because, look, if anything, it was a really... It helped inspire conversation that we can talk to each other about triggers, you know? Jeff says, I think that's the thing about triggers. They sneak up on people regardless of their clean time. Addiction is cunning, dangerous beast. Yes, very, very much yes. Nicole says, I went to help my friend yesterday and she was high. It was really bad. Yeah, you know, helping people who are high can be really difficult. And that's why in a lot of times, like they tell you, regardless of how much clean time you have, if you're going to help somebody who's using, that you always bring another person with you, because they say it's a lot easier to drag somebody down than it is to pick somebody up, you know? And it's not always easy because, you know, we want to be able to help people, but it's about guarding our own recovery in the same time, you know? Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. You know, I had to do an intervention with somebody last month. And luckily now they went to rehab and it was successful. But it is not easy, like, talking to people who are still using, trying to help them, trying to let them see the hope. Because a lot of times when people are using, they're not ready. And as much as we want to shake them and be like, trust me, like, once you're in recovery, things will be so much better. It'll be a much better life. We can't make somebody feel that. Like, we can't, they have to be sick and tired of being where they're at, you know? And it's hard when they're not. Yeah, you know, Jan, sometimes that happens, right? Like, even if we don't have, and some people are really good at saying, like, I also want to say that the opposite kind of gets me sometimes, too. When people are very much like, this could be triggering and this could be triggering, because when we're talking about anything mental health related, probably anything we talk about can be triggering to somebody. And so I never want someone to feel like they have to be too cautious, because sometimes we need to be like in your face and upfront about what we're saying, right? And if we're too careful with our words, we may lose our message. So there's like a line, and I don't know the answers, you know, like I don't pretend to be like, this is the best way to do it. Like, I have no idea. But I think the more we're able to talk about these things without making people feel badly, then, you know, we can have a conversation. Because I think what happens a lot of times when we have conversations is we want to be like, they did this wrong, or this person did that wrong, and then we put people on the defense, right? Whereas if we can have an open conversation, even if we all have different perspectives, then maybe we can all learn something, you know? It was like God put a mirror to my face. Seeing her like that was a reminder of what I was like. Exactly. It's amazing because, like, we forget. And I think that's, you know, I did a video last week, I guess, week before, the Addicts Deserve to Die video. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is a lot of times when people get some clean time, they lose compassion for other addicts. Not all other addicts, but like I've seen it where people are like, well, if they don't want to have help, like, screw them. They're the ones screwing themselves up. And it's like, look, we were all there. Nobody like walked into recovery being like, you know what, things are great using, but like, I think I don't want to use anymore. Like, no, most of us turned to recovery because our lives were in shambles. People had given up on us. People didn't have faith in us anymore. So I try to have compassion for people regardless of where they're at, you know? Does this mean we can never watch The Matrix together because of the blue? No, that scene does not trigger me at all. I just talked about you, Trial. I had said how, you know, I don't have a problem once a week, how, because you have epilepsy, how you have to set your pills up. That, like, even that doesn't bother me. So, it's funny, I don't know if anybody else is like this, but because pills were my thing, and I was around a lot of different kind of pills on a regular basis, like in bottles, certain bottle shakes, they sound different depending on the size and kind of the pill. And, like, it's funny, I can literally, like, hear the pills that are more interesting to me. It's really insane. But so, like, one thing I never do, and this is just me, But I never go into a 12-step recovery meeting with a bottle of Tylenol. There are people who take out like a Tylenol pill in a bottle of Tylenol, and that bottle shakes. That was hugely triggering for me. But like, I'm not going to go tell people you can't carry around Tylenol at a recovery meeting because it bothers me, right? Because it clearly doesn't bother them, even if their drug of choice is the same. So like, that noise is triggering to me, but it may not be to somebody else. So is everybody else supposed to change what they do because it bothers me? I don't think so. Hey, Kevin. So I think that it's recognizing the things that could cause us triggers, and also knowing what to do when we feel triggered so that we don't sit in those feelings. Because as I said, when I saw the video yesterday, I was surprised. I still sat and thought about it this morning. And like, something hasn't made me feel that way in quite some time. And that's why I thought it was worth having a conversation about, you know? You need to go. Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. I really, really appreciate it. Sending you lots of love, too. Hope things are going well. Tell your guys I said hello. And, yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm going to get off in a few more minutes. Apparently, I have children problems that I have to make some phone calls about. But, you know, I just think, like, the one way I deal with triggers is I talk about them. I really deal with all problems that way. I'm a talker, if you guys haven't figured that out yet. So whenever I'm feeling some sort of way, I'm going through something, I like to talk those feelings out. So that's why I thought it would be fun to do like a live stream, because since I was still kind of like in my head about that, I thought it would be a good thing to talk out, because I figured other people had gone through situations where they feel like they've been triggered, and like, what are you going to do, you know? Are you going through any stress, or have you stopped doing something in your program? No, I'm not. I don't usually have, like, even in early recovery, I wasn't really, like, triggered so much. I had to learn early on, because I couldn't change people, places, and things. So I learned pretty early on how to deal with triggers. I think I was caught off guard because I didn't expect something like a video to trigger me. Like, I don't know if you guys ever watch Intervention. Every once in a while, like, that show can do it, where I feel like funny. And I don't mean triggered like, oh, I want to go out and use. Triggered like it made me feel off, right? So sometimes like a show like Intervention or something can do that, but I know that it can make me feel like, it can make me feel uncomfortable sometimes. So I know that going in. So if I choose to watch it, I do so with the understanding that it may make me feel some sort of way. I think that I was not expecting, as I said earlier in the video, it wasn't just like this with the pills up in the camera, like that close. It was also the fact that the person, while they were showing them, was talking in a way that was very like smiley and happy and things are wonderful type of attitude. Now, it was just the intro, so of course they're speaking that way, but it kind of brought me back to like, here, take a pill, it'll be fun, right? Like, that was kind of what I stopped hearing the words, and it was as if he was like, don't you want one of these? These will be good, you know? Like, that's kind of how my brain was interpreting this, and so I had to shut it off. And I did leave a comment. I said, I'm sure the video is great. I can't watch it. It was way too triggering. So, which is weird. I've never had to do that on a video. So, there have been other people who have said that, Jan. I don't think you're the only one. But I think that that's why it's great that there's so many of us that do have recovery and mental health channels, because not everybody's going to hear a message from the same person in the same way. And I've shared this before. Not everybody hears things from certain people, right? And I think the more of us out there that have channels that talk about recovery, the more likely it is that someone who's struggling can find the person who they feel they can hear the message from the best. Because it's not always going to be the same person, you know? Yes. Jiffy, do me a favor. She's just sharing. She didn't say anybody's name. She's not. It's okay. I understand that people get frustrated, and this is why I didn't say anybody's name, and I was very specific about it. Thanks so much, Ian. I appreciate you stopping by. Jiffy, I think, to be fair, I have heard a lot of people who feel that way. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but look, everybody's going to look at people in a different way, and that's okay, right? Like, it is not okay to go and be hateful towards people or try to bring people down. Like, to me, like, that is not okay. But we don't have to like everybody, and we don't have to get a message from everybody, right? So I think that, for me, I think that this is one of the reasons why... No, you're fine, Nicole. You didn't say anything. I think that's why that we're so quick to want to get mad at people, right? Like, we're so quick to be like, if somebody gives a negative opinion, to be like, go at them, right? If you notice, right, she's saying in her opinion. We don't have to agree, right? People don't have to agree with what Jan's saying. She just thinks the delivery is the same. We don't have to come at people in a negative way when we don't agree. There's a lot of things that people... I'll tell you right now, people have left comments on my videos that were less than nice. And you can go back through every comment on my video. I've never deleted a single comment. And there are people who had left comments on my videos that were really not wonderful that I would have loved to delete, right? But then I felt like, for me, I would have been a hypocrite, right? I'm hoping, Jiffy, I'm trying really hard not to use people's names, and I think that it's, if we start putting people's names in the chat, because of the conversation we're having, we're more likely to bring negativity towards that creator without meaning to, just because of the topic, and I don't want to do that. This was about my feelings on triggers and not criticizing somebody's channel. So, look, everybody can have their own opinions, and I'm totally fine with that. I just don't want, because my concern now is that because I was sharing how a certain video triggered me, right, which I also shared with that person, I don't want people then to read through the chat, see who I was talking about, and then go leave negativity for that person, because this has nothing to do with their video. This is about, like, I wouldn't even put their name in the tags, right? This was so that I could talk about how I deal with triggers when they come at me when I'm not expecting it. This was not about another person's video. Thank you very much, Jan. Yeah, exactly, Trial. So I just want people to know, like, look, I respect everybody who's in this space, right? I don't have to like everybody who's in this space. I think that we all get messages. Of course, Jiffy, of course. We all get messages from different people, right? There are people who will tell you that, you know, this creator has saved their life, and that's the person who inspires them to do better, and somebody else may look at that same creator and be like, are you kidding? They're a fool, right? But if they're helping one person, then who am I to say that they can't help that person, right? I have only ever said anything about any other creator if I felt that the message they were giving was dangerous. Otherwise, I've tried very hard to stay away. I want to make sure that I think all creators in this space, well, really anywhere, but especially in this space, really, they're sharing about their own personal experience with stuff, especially ones who talk about addiction. It is not easy, and there's too few people out there doing so, and I think what happens is that we're all afraid that if we say the wrong thing, we're going to bring, like, the internet wrath down on us, right? And we're hard enough on ourselves as it is. So I think it's good that there's a lot of people who are talking about things, and they're doing it in different ways. Even if it's not something I agree with, that's okay. Let's see. Maybe if you let the person know that holding the meds up. No, I reached out to them. I reached out to them first. That's why I'm saying this has nothing to do with them. I'm just sharing my own feelings. Right, exactly, Jen. Your triggers may be completely different than somebody else's. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people, Jiffy, do deal with triggers regularly, and it's how do we manage those feelings. That's what this video is about. Yes, Jenny, everybody is human, and nobody is perfect. We are all going to make mistakes, or we're all going to have bad judgments. Like, there are times where I think that something I've done is like, this was good, like people are gonna like this is gonna be great, and then it has a super negative outcome where people are like, why would you say that, or why would you do that? And it takes me off guard, because I'm like, no, I thought this would be good. And then you get a reaction and you're like, it makes you relook at things, right? Like, we never all do the right thing all the time, even if we really, really try to, you know? I think that what's important is that we're able to have conversation with each other without getting mean and hateful. It is so easy, especially online, to be like, I don't like them, and say all sorts of negative stuff, right? It is a tricky subject matter at the best of times, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I tried in my live streams. I thank you, Jan. I commented and I made sure I was very clear that, like, I'm not saying anything negative against the video. I'm sure the video was super helpful to other people. Personally, it was triggering to me. And I only left that comment, one, so the creator knew, and two, so if anybody else felt that way, they would know that they weren't alone, because sometimes things surprise us. I was surprised to be triggered. I'm not going to lie, Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the more we can talk about things, look, people know all the time that, like, I try really hard to have conversations with people from all over, right? And in a way that we can actually talk about something without getting defensive or, like, attacking, because that's our go-to. I don't know about anybody else, but, like, first of all, if I feel like you're saying something negative against me, I'm automatically defensive, and I'm no longer going to be able to listen to the criticism, right? And sometimes I need that criticism. I need to hear what you guys say so that I can improve, so I can better carry a message. But if the approach is like an attack kind of way, I may miss it. So I think it's really important when we talk to other people that we do so in a way where they hear it, and not in a way that's going to make them automatically defensive, because then there's no way they're going to hear it. And if we really care about trying to make the recovery mental health community on YouTube a safer, healthier, happier place, then as creators especially, we need to set an example of how to speak to other people and how to interact with other people. And if I get upset with you guys while you're commenting over what you're saying or how you're saying it, then I'm not setting a good example, right? The one thing I will say is that anybody who comes to play trivia here on Wednesdays, we don't talk about anybody else about anything at all. We have a no drama rule on trivia days, which means that we only talk about things that are happening with our own lives, like at the moment. We're not allowed to bring up any other creators. We're not allowed to, anything. Hey, Sylvia, welcome. And I do that because there's people, if you ever come to my trivia game, you'll see we have people who play trivia from all different parts of YouTube. We have people who come in who are like mortal enemies, but they'll play trivia together, right? So, I want my channel to be a safe place regardless of who you are, who you like, what channels you follow, right? Like, I want you to feel like you can come here, share how you feel without getting any type of negativity in response, Thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. Yeah, unfortunately, I did try sharing, believe it or not, TRS and I had a couple conversations. I tried to help him a lot, and he wasn't really interested. So, unfortunately, But, Jiffy, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that, if that's her opinion, then that's okay, right? Like, you don't feel that way, and that's okay too, right? Like, we don't have to agree to be respectful. Like, we don't. And I think recovery is a really great place to learn, like, how to speak to people and how to have very different points of view and come together in discussion, right? But look, I think I've never kicked anybody, and I don't want to ban anybody. I just want people to learn how to speak respectfully. I think that if Jan is giving her opinion, then that should be okay. The same way I think if Jiffy gives his opinion, like, that needs to be okay, but we shouldn't attack other people. If Jan feels that way, and she's not the only one, I'm not saying I feel that way, but I know the way Jan feels. She's not the only one who has made that comparison or feels that way. It doesn't have to be your opinion, Jiffy, right? Like, if you don't feel that way, that's great, right? Like, that's okay. There's a lot of people who I look to, who I love, who other people are going to tell me, why would you like them, right? That's part of being human. We all have our different perspective, you know? We don't have to like everybody else, you know? We don't have to share the exact same opinions. And that's why recovery is such an important thing, to be unique, right? We need to know what's best for ourselves, what keeps us sane. My phone's been buzzing, so, you know, we'll see what's going on with that. Look, I want to thank you all for joining. And remember, like, triggers can really come from anywhere. It can come from having conversations, you know? Thank you so much, Jiffy. I appreciate that. I think that, I think we need to make sure, thank you so much, Fedora. Yeah, we just need to make sure that in all walks of life that we're being respectful, right? And we need to be empathetic to people. I know that sometimes things trigger me that don't trigger other people. So what do I do about it, right? For me, talking through those feelings helps. For others, it may be something else. So once I close this out, I would love to hear your thoughts about, how do you deal with triggers in recovery? What triggers you? How do you deal with it? What do you do when it comes up unexpectedly? Let's leave that in the comments, so when other people come to watch this, they can walk away and get some additional help, because I'm not the only one that's had to deal with triggers in recovery or in mental health in general, and I'm sure you guys could give some great suggestions for how to get through them as well. So again, please be respectful in the comments, though. That's all I ask. I've never deleted anything yet, and I hope to never have to. As you can see, I have no mods, and I hope to keep it that way, because I love the idea that, like, we can be respectful to each other here. We don't need someone to police us, right? So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.